It started like any other Monday morning in Chicago. Commuters boarded their trains, sipping coffee, reading papers, thinking about everything, except the danger just around the corner. But within minutes, one simple mistake, a backup maneuver without a warning flag, would lead to one of the deadliest train crashes in the city's history. Two trains, one track, a deadly miscommunication. But how could this happen? And why were safety rules ignored that day? This is the chilling story of the 1972 Chicago train collision. Chicago, a major city in the northern United States, home to nearly 2.75 million people. It's located in the state of Illinois, roughly 84 miles south of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and about 28 miles east of Naperville, Illinois. Chicago is connected by a wide network of commuter rail lines. One of the busiest is the Metra Electric Line, a 31.5-mile electrified route stretching from the city's southern suburbs to downtown. As of 2023, it serves 49 stations and runs on tracks that range from single to 4 tracks wide. Back in 1972, this train line was not called Metra yet. At that time, it was run by a company called the Illinois Central Gulf Railroad. This company was created in 1972 when two older railroad companies joined together. At the time of the accident, 2 different types of trains operated on the line, and both were involved in the crash. One of them was Train 720, an express train with 6 cars traveling north that morning. This train used older single-level electric train cars called IC electrics. These cars looked similar to classic Pullman passenger coaches of the time, long, heavy, and built for comfort, but with one big difference: no front locomotive. Instead, they had electric motors built into the cars and a pantograph on the roof to draw power from above. The second train involved in this crash was Train 416, a commuter service traveling in the same direction. Unlike the older express, Train 416 was brand new. It was made up of 4 Highliner cars, modern bi-level electric trains introduced just a year earlier, in 1971. It was the morning of October 30th, 1972. Gray skies hung over Chicago as commuter train 416 made its way toward 27th Street Station, near Michael Reese Hospital. The train was unusually crowded, especially in the first and last cars. Many of the passengers had missed an earlier train that never showed up, and now they were packed tightly into Train 416, hoping to make it to work or school on time. As Train 416 approached 27th Street Station, the driver misjudged his speed. Traveling at around 35 miles per hour, he overshot the platform. By the time the train came to a stop, the last car was more than 600 feet past the end of the station. The driver consults the conductor. Together, they agreed to reverse the train back into the platform, a move meant to correct the mistake and avoid further delays. They knew the line used an automatic signaling system that tracked trains through past signals. In their minds, they had already passed the signal that would stop any train behind them. They believed they were safe, but guidelines were clear. If a train needed to reverse, a conductor had to walk to the back and act as a flagman, standing at a safe distance to warn any following trains. That step was skipped. Hoping to save time, they began backing up the train, unaware that another train was speeding toward them on the same track. At 7:36 a.m., Train 416 begins to back up, slowly moving in reverse at just 10 miles per hour. The driver and conductor lean out of opposite sides of the train, trying to keep an eye on their surroundings while staying in contact through the onboard intercom. But soon, another train rushes past on the adjacent track, forcing the driver to pull his head back inside for safety. By 7:38 a.m., the rear of Train 416 finally reaches the platform. The conductor informs the driver and tells him to bring the train to a stop. Just moments later, disaster strikes. Express Train 720, moving at 44 miles per hour, crashes into the back of the almost stopped Highliner train. The crash is extremely violent. The heavy steel express train smashes through the back wall of the Highliner, climbs on top of it, and rips through the train car like a battering ram. The front wheels of train 720 are torn off as the train pushes deep into the back car. It crushes seats, breaks through metal, and shifts hard to the right, tearing off the side of the car. Train 720 finally stops, twisted, broken, and lying on the track next to it. The front 10 feet of the train are completely destroyed. The result is horrifying: 45 lives lost and 332 more injured. It is the worst commuter rail crash in Chicago's history. The crash happened just outside two major hospitals: Michael Reese Hospital, right next to the tracks, and Mercy Hospital, only blocks away. Within minutes, doctors, nurses, and emergency staff were on the scene. Their fast, large-scale response, combined with the incredibly short transport distance, helped save countless lives. Many survivors were rushed straight into operating rooms without delay. Thanks to this immediate medical support, the death toll, as tragic as it was, could have been far worse. The National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, was quick to respond to the scene. Investigators arrived soon after the crash, carefully examining the wreckage of both trains. They interviewed the conductor of the Highliner, who had miraculously survived the crash by jumping off the train just moments before impact. As they pieced together the details, they learned something critical. Although 27th Street Station was a flag stop, meaning trains only stopped if requested by passengers or people on the platform, Train 416 was an exception. Every morning, the train made a scheduled stop at the station to drop off workers heading to the nearby Michael Reese Hospital. In fact, between 7:30 and 8 a.m., 416 was the only train scheduled to stop there. Meanwhile, 17 other trains passed through without stopping. This crucial detail helped paint a clearer picture of the accident's unique circumstances. During the investigation, the conductor of Train 416 explained what happened. Yes, the train had overrun the station, but that wasn't entirely uncommon. In fact, it happened from time to time. A car length or two beyond the platform? That was normal. But this time was different. Train 416 had gone nearly 600 feet past the end of the platform, something no one could remember ever happening before. The Highliner trains even had a buzzer in the cab, a standard signal for the driver to alert the conductor if the train had overshot the platform. But this situation was far beyond routine. At an NTSB hearing, none of the crew members interviewed could recall any previous case where a train had gone this far past a station. In more typical overruns, passengers would just walk to a door that was still on the platform, or, in some cases, the train would head to the next stop, and passengers could double back on another service. When investigators asked the conductor why he didn't follow flag protection procedures, he pointed to something very specific: Guideline 99. The rule stated, within interlocking automatic block system or centralized traffic control system limits, flag protection is not required against following movements on the same track. In other words, because they were inside a protected section of track with automatic signals, flagging wasn't technically required. At the time, the railroad used what's called a block system, a safety method that divides the track into separate blocks. Only one train is allowed in a block at any given time. As a train enters a block, the signal behind it turns red, or in the language of old railroading, it falls. That red light warns other trains not to enter the same section. The conductor believed he had followed the rules. Since the train was operating under an automatic block system, he assumed flag protection wasn't needed while reversing. That's what Guideline 99 seemed to say. But there was a critical oversight, one that Guideline 99 never mentioned. The Highliner hadn't just passed the station, it had gone beyond the next signal. By doing so, the train left its original block section. The signaling system now saw it as clear of the station. The block behind was shown as empty, so when Train 416 reversed, it moved backward into the station block. But the system didn't recognize that movement. Why? Because trains moving in reverse didn't trip the signal system. To the automatic system, Train 416 had left the block. and train 720 was given the green light to proceed. By the time the express train entered the station, it was too late. The engineer looked up and saw another train reversing directly into his path. But this raised a troubling question. Why didn't the engineer of train 720 stop when he saw another train directly ahead? Investigators believed that, at the posted speed limit of 30 miles per hour, the Highliner should have been visible with enough time to make a full emergency stop. But there was a problem. The older IC electric trains didn't have speedometers. Drivers were expected to feel their speed, judging it by how quickly the landscape rushed past their windows. So, to find the truth, investigators had to get creative. They studied the damage, analyzing how the steel deformed on impact. They also spoke with the engineer of the overtaking train, the one that passed beside train 720 just seconds before the crash. By combining eyewitness accounts with the physics of the collision, investigators traced the final moments of train 720's approach. Skid marks and mechanical evidence confirmed an emergency brake was applied, but far too late. After crunching the numbers, they estimated train 720 had been traveling between 50 and 55 miles per hour, nearly double the speed limit. But this wasn't just a case of one train backing up and another going too fast. The truth was more complicated and more troubling. Even at the high speed it was traveling, investigators found that train 720's engineer should have had enough time to stop. The Highliner would have been visible from over 1,700 feet away, and at the estimated speed, an emergency stop should have brought the train to a complete halt within 1,200 feet. So why didn't that happen? The engineer of train 720 survived the crash. Barely. He'd left the cab and ran toward the passenger area just before impact. When questioned, he admitted something crucial. He had seen the yellow warning signal. Yellow means slow to 30 miles per hour. And more importantly, it means expect stop at the next signal. But he misunderstood the meaning. He slowed down, but not enough. He didn't realize the yellow wasn't just a caution. It was a warning that the next signal might be red. The final investigation didn't point to a single mistake. This wasn't just human error. It was a total system failure. It started with one misstep. The Highliner overshot the platform by a huge distance and unknowingly passed beyond the station's signal block. That small move triggered a chain reaction. By entering the next signal block, the Highliner caused the signal behind it, the one meant to stop train 720, to show yellow instead of red. Yellow meant slow down, expect a stop, but not stop now. Then came the next choice. The conductor of the Highliner, instead of continuing to the next station, decided to reverse. He likely didn't realize how far they had gone, or how dangerous that decision was. Trains on that line ran every 2 to 3 minutes. That meant the next train, 720, was already close. Flag protection, a procedure meant to warn any approaching trains, was skipped. And while the conductor was guiding the reverse move, he leaned out the door on the west side of the crowded train, talking to the engineer by intercom. The emergency brake was across the aisle from him, and likely blocked by standing passengers. By the time anyone saw the disaster coming, it was already too late to stop it. On paper, yellow signals are a clear warning. Slow down, be ready to stop. But in reality, they had almost become background noise. Because trains on this line ran so closely together, yellow lights were nearly constant. Drivers saw them all day, every day, to the point where the warning lost its urgency. That kind of repetition can dull a response. And that's likely what happened to the driver of train 720. He saw the yellow, but he didn't react like he should have. Technically, the red signal at the end of the platform was visible from a distance, but only in theory. In practice, the signal was hidden, blocked from view by the pedestrian bridge at 27th Street Station. The Highliner train had a sleek, modern look, grayish-silver with black-painted end walls. But that design had an unintended consequence. On a cloudy, gray October morning, It blended almost perfectly into the background. The only warning of its presence? Two tiny lights in the upper corners, barely an inch and a half wide. It wasn't enough. As train 720 approached, the driver may have seen something, but not clearly enough, not fast enough. At 55 miles per hour, the train was eating up over 78 feet every second. The official investigation broke the disaster down into 18 factors. 18 reasons why this tragic collision happened. They were divided into two categories: causing factors and worsening factors. The causing factors were what set the stage for the crash in the first place, the chain of events that led to the deadly collision. The worsening factors were what turned a crash into a catastrophe. One of the key points was the telescoping effect, a terrifying term where one train literally travels through the other. It happened because the train's structural designs were incompatible. When the IC electric slammed into the highliner, it didn't just crash, it mounted the highliner's frame. The highliner wasn't designed to stop this. It failed to prevent the crash from becoming far worse. Federal regulations had required newer trains to have integrated safety features to avoid this very thing. These collision posts were supposed to stop one train from climbing onto the other's frame in a crash. The highliner trains were equipped with collision posts, square, reinforced steel pillars designed to protect passengers. These posts were positioned at the end of each highliner pair, framed by the aisle to prevent another train from climbing over the train's frame during a collision. But, during this devastating accident, the posts didn't do their job. As train number 720 collided with the highliner, it didn't slow down when hitting the posts. Instead, the IC electric train mowed right through them. The investigation revealed a chilling discovery. The posts hadn't been properly attached. The welds that were supposed to secure the posts to the underframe were only 25% complete. And the reinforcement plates that were supposed to strengthen the posts? Those plug welds were incomplete too, further weakening the posts. The official report concluded that the primary cause of the accident was the late braking by the driver of the highliner. However, the situation quickly escalated from bad to worse, with multiple factors compounding the issue. By the time the severely damaged number 720 train came to a halt, its rear was partially inside the rear car of the highliner. In the aftermath, the report issued 5 key recommendations. 1. Improved training and regular checks. More stringent training and frequent checks to ensure that all procedures are followed correctly during everyday operations. 2. Automated train control systems. A push for the Federal Railroad Administration, FRA, to explore the implementation of automated systems to prevent future collisions and control speeding. 3. Compliance with federal standards. It was also recommended that the FRA create a system ensuring all trains entering service meet federal safety requirements, especially regarding structural integrity, like the weakened collision posts on the highliner. 4. Crash tests for train designs. The introduction of mandatory crash tests for new train car designs to improve safety. These recommendations aim to prevent future tragedies and address the systemic failures that led to this catastrophic collision. The crash that morning was more than just a tragic accident. It was the result of a perfect storm of miscommunications, outdated systems, and missed opportunities for safety. But the real question remains: could this disaster have been prevented? What do you think? Could better training, faster technological implementation, or even just more attention to the smallest details have saved lives? And are we, as a society, doing enough to ensure the safety of our transportation systems? Share your thoughts, and let's keep the conversation going.